For years now, there have been quite a few amp simulator apps out there from quite a few different companies. Most of them sound pretty good. Some of them are even getting close to capturing the feel of jamming through a real live tube amp. You might have seen a walkthrough video I did last year for an app called Jam Up Pro from the gurus at Positive Grid. Over the years though, how many of your favorite guitar sounds have come by way of amps that have been heavily modified, tweaked to get just that sound that the player was after? The answer, a lot. So while amp sims can help you get the guitar sounds from a bunch of different guitar amps, both vintage and modern, if you want to tweak that, get something a little bit different, a little bit special, you're out of luck. Until now! Welcome to Bias. So what is Bias? Is it another guitar amplifier modeling app? Well, yes. No. Sorta. Let me explain. Bias takes the idea of amplifier modeling software a pretty big jump in the future by turning the whole paradigm of amp modeling on its ear. Instead of modeling the sounds of a bunch of great amplifiers, Bias models the individual components that combine to make up these great amplifiers and then allows you to tweak a whole bunch of them. With this kind of fine control, any guitar sound you can imagine is now literally at your fingertips. Let's take a look. This is the main Bias display. It's split into a few sections. At the top, you can pick from either the huge selection of factory amps that come with Bias or one of your custom amps that you'll create and save later. Okay, now down here, just a little bit from the top, is where all your factory amps live. They're split between a whole bunch of different categories. Next is what I call the tweaking area. This is where the bulk of Bias's editing options live. And finally, here at the bottom, you have your input meter / slider. You can also lock that so it doesn't get bumped. You have a noise gate that you can turn on or off, as well as make adjustments to. Here in the center, you have the quick snap area. Now this is used to save different amplifier states. So for instance, you can make a few tweaks to your preamp, save it to one spot in your quick snap, then make a few more tweaks, save it to another spot, and then you can switch between them and compare them. Over here you have your room control, which is basically a room verb, and at the right you have your output level meter / slider. To use Bias, you simply choose an amp from the huge selection of amps that ships with Bias. Tap here to enter editing mode, and then tweak to your heart's content. So far, Bias is shaping up to be a really kick-ass amp sim, right? Well, here's where it really gets interesting. The great included amps are only the starting point. Once you've selected an amp, the next step is to dive in and do some modifying. And there's quite a bit you can modify. We'll start with the preamp section. Now first you have a 3-band EQ. This is pre-preamp, meaning it affects the sound of your guitar before the preamp circuit hits it. Next you have a gain knob, which basically mirrors the gain knob on the front panel of the amp. Notice if I turn it up here, it goes up there. Above that you have a bright switch, which increases the top end response a little bit. Here you can select how many tube stages you want your amp to have. In its stock form, this amp has 3 tube stages. Sounds like this. Let's see what it sounds like if we bring it up to 4 tube stages. These are preamp tubes, by the way. Notice that kind of fattens it up a little bit, adds a little bit of gain. And if we go up to 5, you can hear that's got a lot more gain. Now I like the clarity of 3 tube stages, so I'll just leave it there. Now you can select which preamp tube types your amp uses, both input stage and your cathode follower stage. You have a drop-down list here, which 12AX7s, 12AT7s, and 12AU7s. You can also cycle through these by tapping on the tubes. And this is both for your input stage tube and your cathode follower tube. Now down here you have preamp tube distortion, you have low cut frequency and high cut frequency. Here you have bias control, where you can control the voltage going into your preamp tubes, hotter or colder. And here at the end you have another 3-band EQ where you can further kind of tweak your sound as it leaves the preamp. After the preamp section you have the option of inserting a multi-band parametric EQ, and you can use this to further sculpt your tone. For now we'll leave this out of the chain.